Duckies and Dice Fiends. Welcome in. It is Tuesday. It is the Table Talk Show. I am Kay. I am here with David. I believe you're on this side. That seems right. And we are here today to talk about what's that face? What's that face?
I don't fucking know, yo. I don't know.
It's going to be a day, y'all. We're talking about antagonists, MacGuffins, all the things that you can use to move a plot along when your players are just not cooperating. So before we jump into our topic, David, who the heck is you and what the heck is we doing here?
Hi, I don't know the lyrics to Ave Maria, even though I have performed it and it is stuck in my head. So if you have a convenient way of remembering lyrics to a song that you once sang 35 years ago, please let me know. Not 35 years, like 32 years. Anyway, and this is the chaotic, wholesome presents Ave Maria without lyrics, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff. How to be a better person, how to be a better player, how to be a better human being, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good time.
What are you doing? What
Hey,
are
DC.
you doing? Hi, DC. Oh my god. Y'all.
I think my
I don't
favorite
understand
hat.
what's happening in my life right now.
I mean, Gilmore's in charge. I think my favorite hat is like the poofy chef hat. Anyway, for those who don't know, DC ran a very compelling
Hey, Dungeon Mr. Ty.
food related last week before. Time is a flat circle. It was a good time.
It was a great time. It wasn't Iron Chef. It was what's the mythical metal? My brain is not functioning today.
Mithril?
Yeah, Mithril Chef. But yes, great little charity game, so much fun. And yes, hi, I am Kay. This is Gilmore. He is a terror, but is maybe going to behave a little bit today.
Electrum.
I don't know. We'll find out. Electrum Chef. There it is. My brain, y'all. So, as usual, find us here doing this every Tuesday. On Thursdays, normally we are co-streaming Baldur's Gate 3. That's not happening right now because Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, I am playing over at... Which one is this? Nerdsmith. Playing... I know what it's called. The Grand Labyrinth Heist. It is a Victorian steampunk heist game. And it is going to be going to every Thursday till the end of the month. Fridays, we do stream Baldur's Gate 3 here, so come on by for that. We punched a god.
Yeah, we did.
Did some other stuff. And yeah, that's going well. But today we are talking about cats, obviously. Potentially centaur accessibility. But again, David, what do you do when, especially on a stream, like a home game, it matters a little less, but especially in a streamed game when your players just don't want to do the thing?
First, the first thing you do is you fire your players. No, but in the film industry, many directors have said and will say that 90% of it, 90% of the quality of their movie is casting. Like a director, and I hate, as much as I personally hate Quentin Tarantino as a human being, he is a good director. And part of his process is he goes up to like a famous actor and goes, "Hey, so you know that scene in this one movie from like 1962 that you probably haven't seen? I need you to do it like that." And you see him work with a certain type of actor because he has that rapport. They have that inside colloquial knowledge of there he is, king in his castle.
Give the viewers what they want. Though
Right.
he's still not showing up terribly well on stream. Oh well.
But you like great directors just turn their actors loose and let them do their thing. And so you have to know or at least have some idea of what you're getting when you go to do the thing. And that's tough because not necessarily everybody has reels. A lot of it is referral, and you don't necessarily see performances. And if you don't have, um, a whole lot of experience, or you haven't been seen a lot, then doing the whole like director, what are you squinting at?
I'm just checking. Candace did the cat command. Did it go off and I miss it? Just making sure. Chat
It
can
did.
tell us. You don't have to worry about this, David. Keep talking.
It did not go out. I'm wondering why that is.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's
Let's
something I'll
see.
play with when I'm done ranting. But
Yes, continue.
and so like the first step is get players who are on the same page and moving in the same direction as you. Like whenever we do our charity one shots, we tell everybody, they're like, look,
Hey, Laria.
we think your characters are interesting. We put character moments in the game. We can't spend 2 hours on your character. And everybody's like, well, yeah, because it's a one shot and we don't have a whole lot of time here. And we're like, thank you. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for having the right fucking energy. Because Kay and I both have observed one shots where someone's like, here is the perfect place to unpack the tragic backstory of my character that I promise, I swear, is in no way related to a personal trauma that I have experienced as a human being. But this is where we're going to do my therapy and it's going to be awesome. And it's like, we got 2.5 hours, not counting the breaks. We don't got time to get into all this.
Or again, I had someone roll up to a game and be like, oh yeah, this is a one shot. We've got an adventure to get through. But my character is a secret agent, so I don't know that she would go on this quest because she wants to keep her secret identity safe. It's like, cool. Maybe she should go under a different secret identity? I don't know what to tell you. Like, we're going on this adventure with or without you.
Right. That should be working now. And so like again, it is not about quality of person.
Haha.
It is about being on the same page when everybody shows up. That's the first thing. And then the second step is understanding your players and understanding their characters. Because, and I've told this story before, where like I made an NPC that I thought someone would find sexy, and they were like, "What is this? What is this bullshit? This gross." And instead of being like, "You should find him hot," like you pivot and you keep going. And one of the best tools in your toolbox is what Kay said on the show at this point, like 2 years ago, that we've talked about on occasion, where you go into a tavern and you say to the person, hey, that person's really hot. What do they look like? And then you don't have to, one, do the work of building the physical attributes or even like the personality attributes of someone that a person finds attractive, and two, you could save yourself the embarrassment of being like, this is going to be hot, and then it's really not. And then you got to be like, oh well, I got to scrap that.
Well, and especially if you are a GM who looks like me, right? If we are of a certain Eurocentric background, right? And you have a diverse set of players at your table, making sure that how do you make sure that your NPCs are both diverse and it's not like forced and tokenized? Oh, you ask your players, what are these? Who's hot? They're like, here's this gorgeous black guy. He looks like this. You're like, great, gorgeous black guy is here. Awesome. And also, setting that up, you can learn a whole lot about your players, maybe a bit more than you want to. Because you never know who's secretly a monster fucker.
Right.
You see something really hot and you're like, it's a mind flayer. You're
Right.
like, okay, go off, queen.
Right.
Those tentacles, okay, here we go.
Yeah, just look. More than one person I know has looked at a mind flayer and said within earshot of me or messaged me, "Hey, what that mouth do?" And I'm not gonna say I need y'all to stop. And I typically I don't kink shame. However, I do not need to know what the illithid mouth do. I really don't.
I was playing Baldur's Gate this week with a buy, and we're at the opening little bit, and it's that fight, and I'm like, we got all the kinks up in here, right? We got horns, we got tails, we got tentacles. And this poor person is like, okay, I get the demon thing, but the mind flip. I'm like, look, I'm not saying it's mine. I'm just saying that people get off on that, and that's fine.
Yeah, there's nothing, and like, okay,
Hey, Matt.
the whole this show is not the kink table talk show, but a little bit. It was mostly centaur accessibility. No, but
it's mostly, is Gilmore happy today?
Fair.
The answer is ish.
Oh man, yeah, he's king in his castle. But 90% of kinks, while not for me, I can understand where it comes from. Like Cataclysms of Nights.
Cataclysm After Dark.
And so like Venom. Big muscly person. Long tongue.
Hey, Jason.
Tracks makes sense. I get where they're coming from. The balloons, I don't understand the balloons. I'll never understand the balloons. Just
look, those of you, most of you know, but I play in Emergency Power Podcast, and the incredible Pan, who is just a force, plays this oily shapeshifter, like literally oil that is formed around an SRO frame, a robot frame, and a shapeshifter. And look, Soul is just like, I like weird, and this is weird and different, and I like it. And they hooked up. Soul is very happy. But apparently other people were telling Pan, like, oh yeah, Para. And Pan's like, I don't get it. And someone, I guess they were sending him a character from a lesser known Marvel character who's got kind of that shape of a head. And Pan's like, oh, okay, now I see it. Yeah, now I get it. Okay. The irony of moving your plot along and getting distracted talking about kinks. Well, sometimes, look, we talked about antagonists, but you put a hot boy or a hot girl in your game and you can really get plot moving. If you know that your party is a table full of monster fuckers, all your monsters are going to be humanoid.
Right. Yeah, like, speaking of hot and antagonists, you want to move your plot along? Have that motherfucker walk by. And if you're at a table of like if Allie is at your table, then your villain just turned into an illithid. Because they're different. Like we had a whole episode on antagonists. Check the YouTube. Go watch it. But I love talking about antagonists because antagonists have agency that protagonists do not. Protagonists are dragged kicking and screaming through stories, and antagonists are about getting shit done.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I have an agenda.
Make the plot.
And there's nothing more attractive to me than a man who will burn down the world just for you. Like to me that like to me a protagonist cannot truly love because the protagonist will always choose the world over you. Whereas the antagonist would be like, no, all this burns to the ground for you. And you alone. Like that's love. But if in most of the modules I write, you'll see that the antagonists I write are human beings because I think you can't get more evil than a white guy with too much money. But there are all sorts of different motivations for antagonists, whether it be revenge, whether it be spite. I myself am fueled by spite. Delusions of grandeur, acquiring power, also revenge again. Like, there are all these different reasons why antagonists are antagonizing. And I think the best antagonists have a point, have a germ of something where it's like, you know what? I disapprove of your methods, but you're not wrong. Which is
We've
also
said this so many times, but like Magneto was right, is not only the cry of millennials everywhere. At this point, all the millennials are like, wait a minute. Yeah, he had a point. But again, there's nothing worse than being like, I really hate you, but I can't. You're doing it wrong, but you're not wrong. You're just doing it wrong.
And like, you know, when you're doing your big bad monologue and you say to them, can't you see what they've taken from me? Can't you see what they've taken from you? And then your players have to think about it and they're like, we could join up. Like, we could be friends. Like, you want to build those moments in your storytelling.
Oh my goodness. Oh, why didn't it update? That's weird. Hello, the transmissions. Thank you so much for the raid a second time. Welcome on in, everyone. We are talking all things TTRPGs. Today we're talking about moving the plot along, even when your players don't want to, both through antagonists, MacGuffins, and apparently kinks. You missed the kink talk. I'm real sorry.
Yeah.
It'll probably circle back around because,
It'll probably circle back.
Hi, Hamalu. But yes, we are discussing antagonists and how an antagonist with a point is just some of the best material.
So, Mimics and Misfits, I will circle back to your question. Mimics and Misfits said, how do you feel about players interrupting the big bad monologues? We will circle back to that. But there has to be something provocative and seductive about your antagonists. And the way to amp that up, like I said, most of the villains I make are human because a dude with too much money is peak villainy. But if you know you're at a table of monster fuckers, then poof, that dude turns into an illithid. That dude turns into a Cthulhu cultist. That dude turns into like a werewolf. Like whatever the flavor of monster fucker that you know about your players, boom, now they're sexy.
Also, Raiders, I would wave to you. I would say to you things in chat, but I am currently unable to because. So, hi, imagine that I'm waving. Imagine that I'm giving you wave emotes in chat, but currently I am occupied by a Gilmore.
Gilmore is in charge.
Yes.
So when it comes to interrupting monologues, for me personally, I'm fine with that because there is there's been this buildup, and my antagonists always have like this disdain for the heroes for one reason or another. Um, Sometimes it's the M Bison. You're mad because I burned down your village and it was the most important day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday. I have run through so many motherfuckers that there's no way in hell that I remember who you are. You could be one of thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who have a bone to pick with me about something that happened to their mom or the dad or the grandma or some other important person in their life, because I definitely took that life and I have it here in my pocket. Let me rummage through the archives and maybe I can find it. Um, or just like, who are you and why are you here? You unimportant like there's always this disdain I have built in. And so like when you interrupt the villain monologue, it is the start of a dialogue between the villain and the heroes. And like there are many stories told, like especially in like 80s cartoons, where the whole central plot circles around the hero and the villain gabbing at each other. Like Skeletor's talking shit to He-Man. Megatron gets into Optimus Prime's ass relentlessly, and Optimus Prime chirps back. Like, very central.
Let's not even talk about Dragon Ball Z.
Right. Dragon Ball Z, where it's 3 episodes of them just fucking roasting each other. You're fucking doing a dance battle. It's like, listen, turn off the 80s synthwave and get back to throwing hands. And so yeah, it's the beginning of that discourse. Whereas like your Optimus Prime and Megatron have been going at each other for a very long time. But I will say that if you're playing, like, especially if it's a home game, a lot of GMs have been building up to this monologue for a long time. In some cases, years. So give them like a solid 120 seconds to villain monologue before you start talking shit. Yeah. Before you cast haste on the villain and say you agree with him, and then drop haste so that they're fucked.
Who does things like that? Who does things like that? Who would do that? No, again, I agree. Adam of the Emergency Power Podcast has a lot of villains who like to monologue, and especially those, like, I wouldn't have done it early on, but now I would, and especially with the folks who played with Adam for so long on the podcast, they'll have moments of like, you know, he'll be going and someone will go like, hey, so you tell me whenever, like, I'm not gonna stop you now if you need to keep going, get whatever you need to get out of your system, but you tell me whenever you're ready for it, and I'm gonna do X while he's monologuing, like, just to make sure. And more than once, Adam has been like, this character was going to monologue until you all did something. So yeah, great. But yeah, also, especially if it's not the final big bad, if it's a minor but, because David and I had a moment in a thing, which is not out yet, because someone hasn't finished doing their job.
It's fine. It's tougher than usual.
But where we had a mini boss who was honestly a very difficult mini boss, who had a lot of information to give to the party, and they stopped this character at the monologue pre-fight. At the end, they literally, they either cut out his tongue or jammed a thing through his mouth, so he couldn't finish, he couldn't give them the information at the end. So now we're like, okay, so now we got to figure out how to give them this information. Cool. Mighty Mur, thank you so much for the resub. I didn't see if our alerts went off, and I'm going to be very grumpy if they did not. Yeah, I haven't seen alerts at all, so those may be not behaving, but we'll figure that out later. That is for hashtag not right now. Not while I'm trying to monologue about villains while holding a cat who's getting very heavy. But yes, And we have, okay, are you done? You keep acting like you're going to leave, and then you don't leave. What do you want out of your little life? What do you want out of your little life?
He wants you to live in a constant state of uncertainty.
So does everyone in my life. Um,
Fair, super fair.
we've talked about this before, and I believe I was aware of this concept, but I heard it so brilliantly put, and I think it was by No Quest for the Wicked. But I need to double check. But the concept of every player, every character should have at least 3 knives. Now, let me be clear. These are not knives that they use to stab people. These are knives that are already in the character's back, and you as a GM can twist those knives when it's time to get a story moving. Brennan Lee Mulligan talked about something similar of he's like, when he's pitching a game for Dimension 20, he has kind of built out a little bit of the world and the basic concept and kind of what is this season going to be about. And then he stops world building until people bring him the characters. And he's like, because I am a lazy DM and I only have so much time to prep. Brennan Lee Mulligan is not a lazy DM. Let's be clear. Brennan Lee Mulligan's lazy is better than most people's 150%. Let's just be clear. That also comes with having GM'd for as long as he has. Are you going to get up or no?
You are free.
Good gravy. My arms are. But he's like, I wait until I get the characters and then I start world building again. Because if I go through the thing and I'm like, oh no, clerics, I don't have to build out the god system, right? I don't have to have all the gods figured out. Oh, we have a wizard. That means they're probably going to get legend lore. So I better make sure I have details ready by the time we hit this level so that I can facilitate a legend lore, right? You need to know exactly what you need to know for your character. Your characters, your players, they're always going to surprise you. But again, if you, and I know we've said this a billion times, but like you go into a tavern and you're like, ha ha ha, I have put the most interesting NPC in the back corner and I'm waiting for them to talk to him. And everyone's like, cool, we see the creepy guy in the corner. We acknowledge that's probably a problem. We're not dealing with him. Tell me all about this kobold.
Right. Tell us tales of breadstick.
Hello, my name is Breadstick. But yes, that becomes less of a problem when you know exactly what you can do. When you say, oh, you walk into the bar and in the back corner, you all see a shady character kind of sitting there, obviously trying not to be seen. But you, player number 3, you see your uncle. Yes, that uncle. The uncle who murdered your entire family, burned down your farm, and left you for dead. That's your uncle sitting over there. You can be sure they're going to deal with that NPC. Easy.
Tell us who supplies the meat to this bar so we can go rob them to have supplies for all adventures. Fun fact, that is a plot line in the home game.
Why does that not surprise me?
Well, like one of the in the home game that I run with Kay, one of the first things that happens is a very powerful magic user they meet makes the beer, makes the best beer in town, and somebody breaks into her place and steals her shit, and she's not happy about it, and she's like, I could burn this whole motherfucker to the ground, but I like this quaint little town, so I'm not gonna burn it to the ground yet. Go out and find who did it, and don't bring me their head because I want to go take it myself.
And look, I am playing my Pastafarian Paladin of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, and you got to protect the best beer in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And another really big aspect of waiting on your players to deliver characters, and we've done this in Godplane, is you build stuff for the character.
Mhm.
You put stuff in the game, like, when someone brings you a character and they're like, oh man, my character really likes juggling, then like you're going to build a magic item whereby if someone tosses all three of them in the air, then a thing happens.
Or
And
you're
then
going
you're
to have a contest that's going to involve juggling. It's going to let your character be like, finally, my moment is here.
like, because we talk about backstories a lot, and we talk about ghosts from the past showing up and biting the characters in the ass. But also special interests are important. Like one of the characters in the home game is very interested in cooking. And so like, I have 7 tabs open right now about like the sorts of foods that a D&D character would find. Kay and I have had this whole discourse about like humans, like non-dwarves, think dwarven food is bad because dwarves are like they can't handle rocks in their food, so we're
We
not
can
going to
put
put
salt.
rocks in, so they don't put salt in the food, at
And
least not the
also, let's
food
be
that they
fair,
serve them.
dwarves eat everything. So, there's like full on snails, like, and poisonous stuff. And they're like, we can't put this in for the humans.
Right. And it's a conversation that doesn't happen if you're not considering your character's needs, if you're not considering your character's special interests. Like, we've gone off on centaur accessibility multiple times, and guess what? There have been people, including Kay, that have had centaurs in their game, and they've gone, well, according to this discussion about centaur accessibility, this, and this would exist. And you build out all of these systems and all of these mechanics, and you really flesh out your world by understanding where your characters are come from. Like you said, like if there isn't a paladin or a cleric in the party, then you aren't necessarily going to build out like a whole like pantheon and like plan for all the gods and their machinations. But if like Halson shows up and he won't shut up about the Oak Father, when really he's the Oak Daddy, then you have a decision to make as a storyteller. Do you make the world more respectful of him and his faith, and more, and like enfold that, where like now there's a grove in the game, um or uh there's a prayer circle that has all these like woven things. You make poison ivy the antagonist, um and so on, and so, or do you make the world harsher,
Mhm.
where there's this anti-environmentalist bent, where there is an eco-terrorist that is attacking farmers that are clear cutting forest land to make farmland. Do you have the townspeople get together and burn the avatar of like a forest god? Like, there are all these things that someone going, hey, I'm a druid, and my god is Oak Daddy. Um, and if you see a bear in the woods, it might be Halson, my Oak Daddy. Um, and sometimes he's a bear, and then when he's not a bear, he's a bear. And if you know, you know. Um, but there are all these decisions that you make storytelling wise, just from, hey, I am druid. Kay has the plant genasi that's cleric. And so, like, you could stick a whole blood trade thing in your game. Or somebody shows up and they're a vampire. Like, that fundamentally, because then you have to decide, is there one vampire? Is this person, are they the last of the vampires? Or is there now this whole vampire community?
And again, we talk a lot about work with your players. Like, if you play a dark elf, a drow, rules have changed, but rules is written. They can't see well in bright light, in normal light. Like, normal light is bad. Now they have basically written, we're like, okay, no, if they were out from the Underdark at a certain age, they're fine. And but maybe a player wants to play with that, right? Maybe that's the thing someone wants to embrace. And yes, there are goggles of night vision. So there can be sunglasses, right? Like,
Right.
why are we drawing these weird lines? And people are like, sunglasses. Shh. And I'm like, my halfling has goggles of night vision so she can hang out with the orcs. Like, come on, y'all. But again, that might be a thing players want to play with, and that might be a thing of like, yo, I just want to play a drow. Like, they're just cool elves. And can we not deal with all of the backlog and baggage that comes with that? And again, that might vary from table to table. But also, like, a lot of times when your players are not going along, there could be a couple reasons. It could just be that night, right? Sometimes, especially in home games.
Yeah, sometimes
Yo,
you're just off the rails.
yeah, we're gonna go off the rails, and it's great. And gods, again, I don't know how many of y'all have watched the recent season of Dimension 20 Fantasy High. David, I've got to send you this clip because they rules as written cheesed a thing and made a divine intervention happen through a simulacrum. And when Bryn and the GM got so frustrated that it actually worked, especially because of how silly the setup was, that he got up and walked away from the table, they carried on still being recorded and made his world worse. And he's like, well, now I have to explain all of this. And like in the adventuring party, the show after, he's all like, audience, I understand. There are going to be people who will look at this and go, I cannot follow you after this. And I understand that. But I am going to figure out a way. Next week is the penultimate episode, and I'm going to figure out a way to make it not this. And was like, I thought you were cheesing it. I thought you were like being funny. No, rules is written. You can absolutely do that. And it's infuriating. And what? When you allow your players to go off the rails, you do get some of the best moments, right? But also it can result in, because again, no one remembers the planning. And no one, I mean, yes, when the thing goes absolutely right, when someone remembers, wait, we got an arrow of dragon slaying 9 months ago and we haven't used it, and I rolled a nat 20 to shoot the dragon. They remember that. Most of the time, people remember what went wrong and what went off the rails. So don't, like, when we run Godplane, right? And we scared a couple people by saying this, and we had to like clarify. It's like, this is not the That's What She Said campaign, right? Like, don't come in and a mind flayer shows up and you're like, oh, Zoidberg, right? That's going to ruin it. Do that after you've killed it. Do that after you've survived, but don't kill the mood. Don't crack the joke before. It's that kind of thing. Like, set your expectations.
When you're building tension, don't break it at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
And oops, all
A full
Zoidbergs.
Zoidberg would be great. I'd be so into it.
We'd have to invent
All mind
a
flares.
new species. Oh.
all like, oh, but they're like the mind flayers that didn't cook fully in the pod. They are simulacrum mind flayers. So here's the thing: if you have a simulacrum, you can cast simulacrum, and that simulacrum can one time. They don't get to rest; they can never long rest. But one time, they get the spells and all the abilities of the person they were copied from. Which is why, if you're a cleric, and that's made from you, you can use divine intervention, right? If the person casts simulacrum again, their simulacrum dissolves. But if the simulacrum creates a simulacrum, rules is written, it stayed. Like Brennan was like, I'm gonna go yell at Jeremy Crawford right now because as written, this should work. But in my theory is if a simulacrum makes a simulacrum, it's kind of like, remember that horrible movie Multiplicity?
Yes.
That.
Yes.
It starts like the quality starts degrading. So it's like the third simulacrum made by
Gets just a little bit slower. No, here's the thing. For one, for as terrible as that movie was, Michael Keaton delivers an all-star performance, as he always does. I think Michael Keaton is one of the most uncelebrated. Anyway, that's a whole tangent. And my train of thought has been broken because you're like, ah, man, we're gonna make all mind flayers, and I'm stuck being like, ah, man, I gotta figure out how to make them sexy, and that's gonna.
You don't have to. You just they're there and people will find them sexy or not, right? Hey. But yes. Also, part of I got myself off on a tangent, but part of if your players are just not going along and it's not just a night, it might be that they're not feeling super connected, super tied in to what's going on to the game. And one of the best ways that you can counter that is by starting to pull some of their stuff in. David did this. Kato's character was a dwarf and was super interested in dwarven construction versus human construction, dwarven mining versus human mining. And so we ended up with mines on mines on mines. It was going to be a singular mine. And then David was like, nope, this character really cares about this. So here's 3 different mines, and you can tell which one was by which. And it gave that character a moment to shine. Was it plot related? A tiny, like the tiniest bit plot related, but it gave that character a reason to shine, a reason to share knowledge, and to pull the rest of us in. And spoiler alert for this season of Dimension 20, if you haven't seen it yet, like be careful. But like everyone at the table was suspicious of a character in the first series. In freshman year, season 1, they were like, that PC's shitty. We don't trust that PC or that NPC. We don't trust him. He's sneaky. And Brennan left it alone for 2.5 seasons. And one of the big reveals was, oh yeah, this character, he's like one of, if not the big bad for this campaign. That was not planned, but because all the players were like, we don't trust that guy. It was like, okay, well here it is. I'm paying into what my players invested in and making it rewarding for them. Building in things made for characters can get everyone so invested, and it's really important in a game. It is, and this is not true all the time. But I think it's very easy to pick out the Night Yorb. Don't say it. It's very easy for me if I'm watching GMs, especially in like one shots. It's very easy to tell a lot of the time when they're playing a module, be it a pre-made one or one they've written, without the characters, without the players in mind. Because there's the story and then there's kind of the characters, and the two don't really click in. And David and I, even with Skyhold Tower, we work to make sure that the NPCs are really interacting with players, and we make sure that oh, this character's really obsessed with this. Okay, we're going to drop that detail in somewhere. Like we will be messaging each other and be like, make sure this is there, make sure we do this. Because that makes the, especially with the pre-written thing, there's like the world and the characters. And when they're kind of separate and the characters are in the world, but it's kind of floaty, it feels weird. But once they're anchored in that space, ooh, it gets good. Ooh, it gets good.
And don't be afraid to talk to your players, because more than once I've gone, hey, I want to build a thing in the game that's interesting for you. And I even had one player say, look, I don't care as long as I end up with cat ears. And I was just like, done. And of course, like, I'm extra, so like I invented a god, and there was a plot line that then got tied to um, things that were happening to that character and in the world, and then that went off the rails. And then another character had a subplot where they had to go get chicken for a door guy, and like, but you could talk to your players and go, hey, I want to, and you don't have to say, hey, it doesn't seem like you give a shit about this game. Are you sure you want to be here? You dumb piece of shit. No, you go, hey, I want to build something that is more engaging for your character, that you connect with better than what we've had so far. And I see that it makes you uncomfortable when the orphans get flayed. So I'm going to cut back on that. But we're also
What can I
going to
flay
like,
other than orphans?
right. Look, okay, look.
Oh gods, I did it. I did it.
No, Allie did it because Ben Affleck. Spicy take, spiciest take. I need more Batfleck in my life. Now, there are a bunch of DC superhero movies I have not seen. Like, I haven't seen Justice League. I haven't seen any of the underwater ones. I haven't seen Flash. But, like, the little slice of Batfleck that you get in Batman versus Superman, as awful as that movie was, as just horrendous as that film was, Ben Affleck as Batman and Jeremy fucking Irons as goddamn what's his name? The British CIA guy who's also like the Michael Caine of the house.
Oh, Alfred?
Alfred. Jeremy Irons is Alfred Pennyworth. I need an entire fucking movie of them just hanging out in the Batcave.
See,
Listen,
David, this
I'm
is another reason we've got to get you to listen to the Emergency Bar podcast, because in our 5e's character is 100%, not 100%, but very strongly Alfred inspired.
noted. I I am terrible with names, and I just had to come up with the names of all the actors that played Batman in my head without Googling them, because I was
Very
already doing
impressive.
too much while doing the talk show, all while on camera, so I couldn't look that stupid when I'm thinking about things. And so I tapped out at like names. So like Aquaman, Jason Momoa, like it's coming now, but in that moment it was just like
Yeah.
your capacity to pull names has been exhausted. There's no more of that.
I also want to make sure we talk about MacGuffins, because MacGuffins can be very
Yes.
fun. And David runs away. So while David is away, I'm going to throw out one of my favorite things, favorite tools, which is just, hey, occasionally put an item out there. Just the players find a weird or interesting item. Maybe it's a really cool key. Maybe it's a weapon with a unique stamp that the identify spell doesn't work on. Something like that. Just put it out there. Maybe it's a talking grasshopper, right? I don't know. Put something out there. And you even as the GM, don't necessarily have to know what that item is, does, or is going to do. part of the joy of MacGuffins is watching the party go, oh, we got to find this thing, or hey, we found this thing. What do we do with it? And you go, And if you just keep going, for a couple months, they're going to be like, that, or they're going to forget about it. And then months later, you're going to be like, hey, so you remember that thing? It just opened. And that gives you months as the GM to figure out what's it going to be, how does it tie in. But even more exciting, it gives your players months to go, you know what, I'll bet you anything this is related to that other thing. And you're like, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, okay.
So, MacGuffins are plot hooks waiting to happen. For instance, we've talked about, if you go full murder hobo and you start like murdering random people, and you go through their pockets, and then it's like the letter from the daughter, or it's the coin with the weird face on it that you've never seen before, and all things that could go in 100 different directions. But something that I stole from my first GM is have an NPC give your players magical pocket lint. And you're like, magical pocket lint? That's stupid. Here's the thing. It doesn't have to be pocket lint, but give your players a MacGuffin. Give your players a thing. For a couple reasons. One, it's your get out of jail free card. Especially like if you're a new GM, or you're, shit at like combat design, or everything's going terrible, then you have something in that isn't specifically built by or that isn't specifically like a god directly interfering, where your party is everyone's down except for one person, and there are 8 like high level people bearing down on them, and then you go, wait, all of a sudden your pocket is warm, and as a free action you can reach into your pocket and it's the magical pocket lid. It's something inside you tells you to squeeze it, and you squeeze it, and then poof, all of you are a mountaintop. There are eagles above, and then you could just like make it into whatever. Like if you as a GM were like, listen, I expected this encounter to be like easy, but you all been rolling ones this whole session, and now everybody's dying. Because, and Kay and I both say this to players, like outside of like the charity game, your characters are in danger. You could get fucked up, and not just, hey, you're misbehaving and you're choosing to pick a fight that you shouldn't pick, that you very obviously shouldn't pick. No, like you're in the room with the big bad and you are not guaranteed to win. We built this challenge to be a coin flip. Like, you might not make it out of here. So don't play around, be about your business. And we've been fortunate that everyone who shows up on our channel is fucking brilliant. And then they find some way to subvert our combat encounters. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm at least gonna down like 2 or 3 of these motherfuckers. And then round
the barbarian
2
turns into a freaking acrobat and follows the monk on the super narrow, this wide rock ledge, and avoids her entire horde encounter.
Or I cast levitate. No.
Also, Ilaria, we didn't put penguins in our game. We put sandguins in our game, and they were terrifying. And I'm waiting to hear Candace's rage.
Yeah. But but even with that plan, like there are things that you're trying to execute that just don't work out, and so giving yourself a way to just hit the undo button to control Z. In addition, there will be times, no matter how carefully you've like planned things out, for anyone who's seen The Good Place, you'd be like, yeah, you picked up 7 of the 3,272 different clues that I left around. You guys are brilliant. Even with all that, there will be times where you're just like, somebody's got to tell them the important plot thing, like something. And so giving yourself a way to be like, okay, relevant information. Here's a thing that moves things forward. And there is an old storytelling trick, where and it originally stems from like the hard-boiled detective novels. But if you feel like you're stuck, have somebody kick the door down with a gun. And having a MacGuffin, like having a thing where if the party's carrying it, like Kay said, the thing just opened. And if people are standing around too long with their thumb up their ass, not sure about what to do, then all of a sudden the thing that they're carrying gets warm. All of a sudden the thing they're carrying starts ticking. Like all of a sudden MacGuffin happened. And continue. Wait, nope.
I was going to say also, especially for, and this, especially for home games, especially for games that are pre-recorded and or edited, like a podcast, or sometimes, especially in high pressure situations, players will be like, I think I figured it out. I think I figured out what I need to do. I just haven't rolled high enough, or I haven't done the right whatever thing I have to do. And they will like quadruple down on like, okay, I'm going to do this. Okay, I'm going to try again. Okay, I'm going to do this exact same thing, but in a slightly different way. It's okay to be like, hey, just between you and me, I understand what you're going for. That's not the answer. Because it is challenging enough to keep players on the rails, especially if you're in a homebrew world with like homebrew kinds of magic or weird stuff where they're like, oh, I need all the details on this. And you're like, that is all the details that exist. I've already given you all the details that exist. There's no more details. I'm making stuff up on the spot now, and it's not going to be as good. And it's slowing it down at the pace of things is going. Like the number of times I have let players go on and grapple with a problem and then been like, okay, well now you walk into a well-lit room, so all that you just did didn't matter. And they're like, you could have just told us that. Like, just because someone is really focused on finding a solution doesn't mean they will hate being told out of character, hey, focus your efforts somewhere else. Because again, especially I'm a GM who I don't often tell people what the DC is. So they're never sure if they've met the DC. Like, do I not have information because this is not the way to get information, or do I not have information because I didn't roll high enough? It's okay to tell players that.
And if something is essential, and I mean absolutely essential, like if your characters have never heard of vampires before, and Van Helsing is standing before them going, all right, here's a stake. You got to put the stake in the heart. Never put that behind a DC roll.
No.
Like, never
or
ever.
If you do, have an alternate way ready for them to get that same information.
Right. Yeah. There has to be a way for the players to get essential information without the dice sabotage.
And this also is true for, this is, David and I went through and kind of foolproofed the Skyhold Tower module that we've run, because you get to that big bad and he tries to monologue. but you also, the party is 100% not sure if he's even a trustworthy person, right? Can they even believe what the big bad is saying? And I'm like, so instead of going full, because I could have just gone full exposition, going like, okay, so here's what happened on your adventure at the end. I was like, no, let's have another NPC behind a wall that they couldn't get through before, and that wall crumbles when the big bad is defeated, so they can get all the information that they need from a trustworthy NPC. And that way, if they shoot my guy in the mouth before he can finish his monologue, I'm not SOL.
That reminds me.
Oh boy.
Environmental storytelling and environmental antagonism, which is not something that is discussed a lot.
Yeah.
But first, we'll start with environmental storytelling. And for those video game nerds out there, you started hearing about environmental storytelling a lot with the Dark Souls series because there's no, hey, so this is the story. There's no, hey, you're a little forest twink and there is a princess in the castle that is fighting a great evil. And so you have to wander around collecting things with your shirt off for the next 300 hours while she is stuck in this torturous battle with this evil thing. And then she's not going to give you a hard time for dragging ass to show up to help her fight the thing. Not save her, help her fight the thing. So with environmental storytelling, you have like in Dark Souls, there are lots of like item descriptions. And when you read a book, the environmental descriptions set the tone for whatever scene you're in. Like, you know, you'll see a lot of like tropey cliche things of the protagonist got his heart broken and starts to cry and then it's raining outside. And it's like for one, don't do that. If you look, I will find you and I will fight you, okay? If you do not have a front lawn, one will be provided to you.
I love when
But
David cracks himself up.
but um it's more than that. Um like there's this not famous but stuck in on Radio Dumbass is this scene in Max Payne where you're in a room and the way forward is a locked door. And there are like, you know, environmental things you can interact with. But there's the Max Payne internal dialogue. There was a key on the table. He needed the key to open the door. There's a key on the table. And it's like that loop stuck in my head. And it's like, I get it, bro. Like you pick up the key, you put it in the door, fine. But again, no one needs to tell you that the key on the table unlocks the door because it's a key and a door. This isn't one of those like Zelda puzzles where it's like you have to melt the ice and then hit a switch so that 3 rooms over a door opens. It's none of that shit.
Even like the non-gamers who are playing Zelda for the first time and just some of the gamer logic that is not this is like,
Yep.
I can't open this door. It's like light the brazier. Why would that open the door?
Yeah, there's no handle, there's no nothing.
It
There's no doorknob.
does.
Right.
You
It's just
light the
how it
brazier
works.
and the door opens and you hear the little chime.
Like,
Obviously. And they're like, how would I ever know that? And it's like, well, it's like in first time D&D people. First time people are playing D&D, Pathfinder, whatever, and they're come up against a dragon. They're like, I want to shoot it in the eye. You're like, that is logic I understand. It is not logical within this game system.
and also, Kay, you've been around chickens. You grew up in parts unknown. Would you pick a fight with a chicken? And I'm not talking about grab chicken to prepare for dinner. I mean just like, you know what, chicken, fuck you. We're gonna get involved in some fisticuffs.
Well, I really wanted to when those little fuckers would fly up in the post oaks and try to go to sleep up there instead of in their coops. We had to get ladders and climb up and tuck them under our arms like a football and carry them to the fucking chicken coop.
The K Damphir lore only grows deeper. Yeah, chickens are heinous, and that's why I eat wings as often as I can. But I there are a lot of questions around the ethics of eating meat. I don't feel bad about eating chicken ever because they're little pissed off angry dinosaurs, and if they were as big as their ancestors, they would eat us right the fuck back. So,
Fight the penguin instead.
so if brittle chicken, like 5 pound hen, is a problem,
That's a huge hen.
yeah, but like compared to other animals, 5 pounds not big. Same with cat. Cat between 5 and 20 pounds, but will do real damage to you. Like a cat does 1d4 plus 2 damage, okay?
And it's got 3 attacks per round.
Right. Now imagine cassowary. Bigger chicken. Much bigger chicken.
Yeah.
With murder claws.
Don't pick a fight with an ostrich. Or even an emu. Like, ostriches are worse. Emus are bad enough.
Right, so ostrich, emu, cassowary. Big fuckers.
Yeah, they have multiple daggers per toe bean.
What people discount is that cats inflict poison damage. I've been stabbed, and it sucked, and it was awful. But having held a kitten, or not a kitten, but having held like an 18-pound cat that was starting to be like, listen, I don't want to be up here, and I try to be as in tune with cats as possible. If a cat didn't want to do something, we're not doing it. But if I'm holding that thing and it's starting to, I've been stabbed, but I haven't like been like full on attacked by a cat. I am willing to put down money that a cat, like me locked in a little box with a cat for 6 seconds, can do more damage to me than one dagger attack. But that is neither here nor there. Because we also want to talk about the cat's proficiency bonus, or there are layers to this. But
their speed bonus and their jump is ridiculous.
Right. So like cassowary, emu, ostrich, big. Like you need weapon to deal with this. Dragons are enormous. They're what, like 20 feet tall or something like that? Like,
and that's just an adult. That's not an ancient.
Right. Fire up not Lord of the Rings. Fire up The Hobbit. And when Sherlock starts talking out of that dragon's mouth, tell me you walk in there and shoot an arrow at that thing.
Even the fat dragon, the cute fat dragon from the D&D movie, would not mess with.
And so, like, yes, your fictional character that the hero you envisioned in your head, sure, will go in and at level 1 shoot at a dragon. But when you think about a real life creature, because I wouldn't fist fight an elephant. And dragons are like 4 elephants crammed into one, but half as angry. Because a dragon
energy.
Right, like a dragon's not going to show up to your funeral. An elephant will show up to your funeral, okay? But it's like 4 dragons or 4 elephants packed into one. No. I look up in the sky, that motherfucker's up there. I'm like, listen, whatever you want to burn down, you got it, my guy. Out of here. Anyway, that was just a long detour to be like, listen, you would download a car, but you would not fight a dragon, okay? But environmental storytelling, like the key on the table and a locked door, is environmental storytelling. You grab key, put in But when you design a scenario where the environment is the adversary, and I've thought a lot about this because I have a module that's set in the desert that I'm working on. And getting from point A to point B is going to be more arduous than well-traveled roads or even less traveled areas that have dense forestry or other types of places that are teeming with wildlife and water so you can just get what you need. Now, Kay and I both subscribe to the we're not going to count your arrows, we're not going to count your ball bearings, like you got what you need. But that changes when the environment becomes adversary. And so you have to think about talking to your players about how prepared they're going to be. Um, you have to think about what type of respite you're going to give to them in that area. And most importantly, you have to think about what the environment is doing to your character. And so you have to think about you have to you have to you have to give the environment a personality. And like in my case, it's going to be a desert. And so, you know, is is your desert going to be a big old bully? Is it going to be big sandstorms and like scarabs that pop up out of the ground and like giant scorpions like a Fallout game? Or is it going to be a thief where every step, every day, it takes something from play. During the day, it takes water. Um, and, at night, there are wolves howling. There aren't any desert wolves that I know of. But, like, there's something that lurks out there that steals sleep, that steals solace. Um, or is your desert going to be what type of asshole is your desert going to be? Because if you don't think about the personality of like just like a humanoid sentient antagonist, if you don't think about the personality, if you don't think about um, all the different characteristics of your environment, then your environmental adversary isn't going to be interesting. Um, it's your environmental adversary is just going to be flat and it's going to be there, and your characters are going to be wandering around without anything really to interact with, because the most important part of the relationship between a protagonist and an antagonist, no matter what form your antagonist takes, is the conflict.
Mhm.
And so you have to put conflict in their survival.
And yes, much like if you have a monk in your party, shoot an arrow at them occasionally. Have your environment, like, make sure that whenever possible, you are pointing out the advantages that certain characters have. Oh, yeah, we're in a desert. Every 6 hours, you're going to do a check, and you're going to have to take fire damage if you fail the con thing. I'm like, my character has the toughness feat, so they roll that with a +4, and they're a tiefling, so they have 5 fire resistance. It is so joyous just be like, I don't understand what's wrong with the rest of you. I'm fine. What? Why are you all so upset? Everyone else is like eaten through half their health, and my character's down 7 hit points. And it's like, yes, it feels good to play this character right now.
And it like another advantage or another storytelling thing is the whole fish out of water scenario. Like just like you have a character that's resistant to heat, put like someone who has like a water familiar, like a water elemental familiar in the desert, and then use that to crank up the tension. Or conversely, you have a wood elf that's out in the middle of nowhere in a desert. And the wood elf looks at themselves in the mirror and is like, "The fuck are you doing? Why are you here? Is this worth it?" But
My
then you give them an oasis and you put a coconut tree in it. And no, it's like you put the oasis, except the oasis is almost dry. There's just dirty, muddy water, but there's a coconut tree. And you send that elf right up that motherfucker, and they knock down some coconuts, and then they drink cool, delicious coconut water in the middle of a desert. And then your elf is like, "I did good today."
my vegetation genasi went into the desert,
Yo.
and they were not happy. They dried out.
Um, and like all of this goes back to the Lord of the Rings. And you know why? When they're trying to go through the mountain pass before they go through the mines of Moria, every one of them motherfuckers is trudging through the snow. And Legolas is walking on top of the snow and is like, "What's wrong with y'all?"
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you I wanted to punch Legolas's smug ass directly into his fucking blonde teeth. And I understand that his teeth are not blonde. His hair right in the middle of his fucking blonde teeth. Whoo! But again, they gave something to the fish out of water, and also the environment was like, "Hey, we're super bullies. You're not gonna make it through. So choose a different path."
Mm-hmm.
And that's environmental storytelling, and that's an environment with a personality. That is an antagonistic environment that says, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. I'm gonna kill you to death." And realistically, like, and then this ties in the MacGuffin thing too, because they were like, "Do we do the mountain pass or do we do the mines of Moria?" And they were like, "Well, the mountain pass is treacherous. We might die. Let's talk about the mines." And I think it was Gandalf who's like, "We don't we don't go to them parts. We don't talk about what happened there. We're just not gonna do that." And look, I have lived in some places where you just go that way, you don't go that way. Wearing what you're wearing, you absolutely don't go that way. And so Tolkien makes the Mines of Moria into a MacGuffin, not as a MacGuffin that you chase, but as a MacGuffin as you run away from. And then there was an antagonistic environment that played an important story note that redirected them back to the MacGuffin that they begrudgingly had uh, to enter. And then they made a whole thing about, well, how do you open the MacGuffin? And then they open the MacGuffin and they start seeing some wild shit. And Gandalf is like, "Nah, this ain't the wild shit. This is fine. This is fine. You're gonna fight for your life, and you might not make it, but this is fine." And then they run into the real shit, and Gandalf locks eyes with his cousin, and he's like, "Yo, this is the wild shit. This is the family reunion I was trying to avoid. Y'all keep it pushing. I'm gonna deal with this." And then he went,
Mm-hmm.
"What up, cuz?" And then but like for a book that came out that was written in the 60s, along with like Dune and along with like a couple other big tentpole novels of the time, there are these storytelling techniques that were masterfully executed. And like you could say what you will about Lord of the Rings, it's a walking simulator. I will talk trash about Lord of the Rings all day. You could say what you want about Dune, about like it being like a misogynistic incel treatise. And having read it recently, it's like way more problematic than I remember when I read it in college. But there are tools that you can excavate from these novels that are incredibly useful in modern day storytelling, in the games that you're running, in the modules you're running. And again, Lord of the Rings went MacGuffin, avoid, environmental storytelling, environmental antagonist, MacGuffin. Oh, this is why we were avoiding it. And all those things build tension. All of those things give them character moments because you have a dwarf that's going into the mines, you had Legolas walking on the snow, and so on and so on. Like, yeah, it got all the things. And
And again, it helped anchor those characters in that world. They weren't just going through the mine because that was the next step to get to the big bad.
And huge storytelling moment about Gandalf. If you like went deep into the lore, then you got all sorts of backstory about him too, and backstory about the world, um, and so on, and backstory about like multiple villains, right? And it
Hey,
gave
Reds.
character moments to be awesome, to show off their skills in the fights. Like, this is the power of having a good antagonist, and an antagonist doesn't have to be the big bad. You know who every so we've talked about before that there are three types of encounters. There's personal encounters, combat encounters, and puzzle encounters. What makes an encounter is that there is an antagonist in it. If there's a bouncer at the club and you have to get in the club to go meet somebody, and he's like, you can't come in here looking like that. Not with them pointy ears. Listen here, Lieutenant Spock. You're not allowed. You can't wear that blue shirt. Red shirts only in here, my guy. That is an antagonist. It's not the antagonist, but it is a antagonist. You come across an unlocked door in D&D, antagonist. You're going to be fighting that thing for the rest of the fucking session.
Again, don't lock important things behind DCs.
Right. And so you could see how environmental storytelling and an environmental and antagonist and a MacGuffin can all work together seamlessly to create big moments for your characters and, most importantly, to move the plot along.
And with that, we are nearing the end of our time. Chat, as always, you've been awesome. If you have questions or comments you would like to make, now is the time. Now that you've just finished a long diatribe, any final thoughts, any closing thoughts, David?
Look, I'm very impressed with myself with how I wove together all the things from Lord of the Rings.
Well. You managed to get in both Lord of the Rings and Star Trek at the same time, and that's
right. Which means I've hit all the important notes. And for fans of certain series that involve wands and babies that defeat antagonists in the first 30 pages of a 7-book series, you can fucking fight me.
But yes,
one day, look, one day Kay and I are gonna do a podcast where it's just gonna be talking about why things that people find beloved are awful, and they will find us, but we're gonna make sure we record all of them and upload them to we're gonna WikiLeaks the whole. Look, Ursula K. Le Guin is a goddess and one of the most important people to ever live. And what she has done for sci-fi and fantasy. Babies who defeat, since we're wrapping up, babies who defeat the antagonist in the first 30 pages of a certain book series that I am not going to say the name of because I've got personal beef with a woman named Joanne. You read the first book, and the first 150 pages are just straight up child abuse. There's no magic, there's no mystery. It's just de facto parents being shitty to a kid. Um, but then, but before that, they're like, oh man, this baby is the child of these two people who fought against the big bad, and we had to hide him in the real world with the real people who actually like were involved in World War II. Um, and he's like, all right, I got the parents, now I'm gonna go get the kid. And then he goes, climbs into the bedroom and tries to bushwhack again. A, not even a toddler, a baby, a little squish ball of not realized human being yet. In some cultures, that kid would not have a name yet because you're not grown enough to have one. No one cares about you yet. And this big scary villain that for the past like 100 years everybody's been terrified of and so scared of him that they won't even say his name. And he gets his ass handed to him, like just slapped clean off, picked up off of the ground, and handed to him by a baby that could not form vowels. And you're supposed to then have some sort of fucking tension between that moment and the end of the series when that grown-up kid, like 16 years later, beats up the big evil magician dude from the 100 years ago that has been gathering his power for the past like 50 years. Hell, that is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard of in my gut. Who has a baby slap? And don't try to talk to me about how, like, in book 3, it was mom's magic. And blah, blah. Do you know how many pages between this baby whooping this man's ass and mom's magic stepping in? That's like 600 pages. Hoo-wee! You gotta be out your goddamn... Anyway, I'm done.
Yes, Laria, if you have not gone in our YouTube shorts, there's an entire series of David reading the hairstyles in Coral Island, and it is savage and hilarious. But yes, I don't know how many pearls of wisdom we dropped this time. At least one. I think we did pretty well. We certainly wandered. Oh no, we wandered. We never do that. So, chat, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you, the transmissions, for the raid. And thank you, Mighty Mur, for the resub. We super appreciate. I'm Kay, still, I think. This is still the Table Talk Show for another couple minutes. Find David and I here every Tuesday doing this, usually with Star Trek or Centaur accessibility rants. Today was this.
The villain who will not be named, not talking about the villain in the book. Continue.
Yes. Are you streaming Thursday, or are you giving yourself more time to recover?
50-50 right now.
50. Okay.
That may be a studying day. We'll see.
Potentially streaming on Thursday. Will not be Baldur's Gate because I will be on at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern over at the Nerdsmith doing the Grand Labyrinth heist. Friday, we will be doing Baldur's Gate 3. And then make sure it's not announced yet, but make sure you've got some time on your calendar Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and that is, I think, 4 p.m. Pacific. Because David and I are going to be in a game.
Yep.
And I can't wait for it to be announced. Keep an eye out. We have a bunch of really cool stuff coming up in June, both for Pride and for Juneteenth, and I cannot wait to announce all of that. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. David, who the heck is you, and what the heck has we been doing here?
Hi, I am still angry about a book series, but I am David, and this is the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff. How to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how to be a better human being, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good
time. Amazing. Let's go. Do we want to... So, My friend Rin is doing art. We also have Xanderific doing Legend of Zelda.
Let's go see Red.
Let's go see Rin. Awesome. My friend Rin, Rin is, or at least was, I don't know if she still is, an artist for League of Legends, and does all sorts of awesome art stuff. She is a true joy. So go say hi and be kind. I'm going to be passed out in Boston. Your Sunday game will be perfect watch. Oh yay! I am very excited for it. And I can't wait to talk more about it. But have a safe trip, Mer. Thank you all again for hanging out, and remember, be kind to yourself, be excellent to others, and we will see you soon.